course, no one can hear me because my mic was muted.
Hey, there it is. I was just going to call you so you weren't just going to continue to talk.
I was like, what is going on? I said
Randall,
hello.
we need an acknowledgement. Can you hear us?
Randall, can you hear us? I can hear him moving.
I hear some stuff back there.
Okay. I had to take off my microphone.
You and Dante having the same problem, Randall. How you doing, man? I'm Vince. Nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us.
No problem, man. This is fun.
We got a financial analyst and a planner where you don't technically get those two delegations in the same conversation. Great job here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought this would be a great, Randall. I have to give credit to Randall today. He was the one that sparked this, this miniature debate that we're going to have today, which I thought was so poignant and good that I was like, okay, let's do it.
But appreciate for the audience. I'm doing this blind. I have no idea what we're discussing about.
That's the only way to do it. So. All right,
let's back, Dante. Don't worry, it's coming around like my Cubs.
Always. Better luck next year, right? That's what they say. Better luck next year.
Go watch the Bears.
So, welcome back to Epic Lunch and Learn, the show where real estate meets real talk, and your lunch break into a masterclass. I am Dante Royster, your mortgage broker, author, and your guide through the maze of money, markets, and mindset. And today we have Randall Avery and Vince Bertuccini, and we're going to have a special topic today. We were going to talk about one of the oldest business debates in the book. Should you use debt to build your dream or wait until you're saved enough to fund it yourself? And so that is the conversation that we're going to talk about today. And Randall, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, so my name is Randall Avery. I own 𝐒𝐓 Wealth Management, which is a financial planning firm serving clients in the Atlanta metro area and across the United States. I think what uniquely allows me to speak on this topic is I actually help business owners build wealth. And I've seen everything across the board, from people who finance their business to people who bootstrap it all the way up. And I know the pros and cons of both sides. So hopefully I can bring a little light. I think at the end of the day, we're going to realize everything is a little bit in the gray, but this is going to be a fun conversation, I believe.
I hope so. I always, when I was getting ready for this conversation, I was thinking every dream costs something, right? Either time, energy, or money. And so the question I say is, should that cost come from your pocket or from someone else, the OPM? So let's talk about the psychology of debt. I want to get a kind of a feel of what you see debt is, and take it from there.
Yeah. So what is debt? So debt is I'm borrowing money from somebody else with the expectation to have to pay it back at some future date. Traditionally, this usually requires the interest payments for somebody actually lending you that money. And the reason a lot of people use debt is that it leverages their situation. Let's say I have a fixed amount of income, but I really want to go on this vacation. I may leverage my life so that I can have that experience of going on that vacation, doing different things. For the conversation today, we're talking really about business debt. And a lot of people are used business debt to acquire different things. Let's say they want to open up a restaurant. They have to purchase an oven, have to lease the land, maybe have to fund employee salaries for a period of time. This is where business debt comes in. And people say, hey, if I want to do this thing tomorrow, if I want to do this thing as fast as possible, I could potentially go to a bank, get a loan, and I can begin operating. But there's a lot of risks that are associated with that. And that is, I think we're going to talk a lot about today.
Sure. I mean, it is. I'll start off with a quote that I looked up, and I like this. And this was from Henry Ford. A man who stops advertising to save money is like a man who stops a clock to save time. Mm-hmm. And so, obviously from a business perspective, if trying to build a business, what about the opportunity cost that we're losing out if we don't have the funds, to embark on something right now? The timing sometimes is so important in a business when you see a problem that you can solve. Mm-hmm. And let's say you don't necessarily have all the money to really engage and embark on marketing or strategizing or advertising that solution. Aren't you missing out on that opportunity?
Yeah. And so when I think about people who want to be entrepreneurs, they really think about, hey, I want to serve society. Okay. And there's very few businesses that I know of that you can't serve that society, that niche population in a certain way without having a large amount of capital. So when we say serving society, when we say helping people out, you can do that at any income or level. It's just really rolling up your sleeve and doing that type of service for that population. So it's not sitting back and waiting. When I say save up is not passive waiting on your paycheck. This is an active thing of you actively doing that business thing and rolling it up to a scale in which you eventually want it to be. So it's really about patience and requiring the knowledge. Because I think we can all say, I think a lot of us on the call are business owners, have started business, interact with business owners. There's a lot of things you need to learn. And if somebody dumped $50,000 in your pocket your first day in business, how much of that money would be wasted, allocated toward things that we thought were good ideas because we may have heard or seen other people do it, but it didn't fit what you specifically wanted to do. So when I say the opportunity cost of time, it's really an active thing. You're still doing your business. You're just not doing it at the scale that you may see in your head.
Got it. I think it's important because, I think from a personal and business perspective, we have kind of deciphered that there is good debt, which are leveraging opportunities, and there's bad debt, which, to some degree is, we want to stay away from. And in business, I do believe in opportunity costs, and I do believe in the moment of now. If you see an opportunity and if you can leverage OPM, other people's money, I think is very important. One stat that I looked at was business.com referenced that nearly 70% of small employer firms carry some type of debt. Mm-hmm. And so, it showed to me that this is more common than, a fringe choice, right? That the average business, more than average, 70% are using some form reference of debt. Now, I'm curious on what type of debt they're using. Are they using debt to pay payroll? I mean, that might be a major concern. But if they're using debt to maybe leverage and expand their business, then, there's some levels of saying, I'm okay with that. I guess it just goes into what type of debt.
Elaborate more on the time is now to strike hot, because I hear that. But what is from a practical standpoint, I never really see a time that really says, if you wait so-and-so, or if you don't do it at this scale, that the opportunity will be missed. I can see that like, one-off thing, but in general business, what is that iron is hot thing that you have to move today? I don't believe in that.
I love it. And so, one of the things I would say is access to capital. Capital is not forever. It's not always available to you. For instance, capital was, being spun out in 2024. Yeah. And then now we have a different president in office, and things have now tightened and slowed down some of the grant programs, some of the funding that used to be available. So funding is not just this ever flow of the river. Yeah. Sometimes it's spotty. It comes into the game and then you need to take it or forever leave it. So when you're thinking about liquidity's sake and having capital, sometimes you have to grab it when it's there, when the iron's hot, so to speak, and then or forever hold your peace. Another example would be, either faster growth or bigger opportunities is the mindset of using debt. So sometimes you might have to, hey, I got this great idea. I want to launch a podcast. I want to launch a YouTube channel. And I'm going to need $50,000 to really get this going and off the hinges. I want to make sure that I got the light. I want to make sure that I got the camera, the proper camera, or I need to get the proper employee. Right. So even from an Epic Mortgage perspective, this is not all me, so a lot of stuff is in behind the scenes background of people making it look better than what it is. Mm-hmm. Those opportunities, if I said, oh, wait, let me save up this $50,000, I might lose that opportunity. Someone else may hire that next employee that could really expand your business.
I hear that, but also what I hear, and a lot of times, is self-imposed constraints. So one of the self-imposed constraints, you said, well, lending may not be always as fluid. That assumes that you're going to participate in lending. Another constraint is, well, this hot employee may be off the market. That concludes that your business model is contingent on a specific type of employee. So a lot of those things are things that, and when I see this a lot for business owners, they put constraints on what it should be, But we all know as business owners, what we thought at the beginning never manifests towards the end. So operating always in a state and putting long-term capital or long-term constraints on yourself to adjust your future, I think could be misguided and a significant risk to your business.
Definitely a risk. Definitely a risk. Now, that part I would agree with you. Taking on that risk on a monthly perspective, I think to some degree, debt will provide a certain amount of stress onto a business, right? There's expectations. There's a new number that you have to hit on a regular basis. But at the same time, with that growth, it might provide you the liquidity you may need when things go awry, things that you don't anticipate for. I would definitely, I definitely would consider debt can be good if you're leveraging it to get you to the next level. I mean, I think of it even if we go to like a personal perspective, right? There's people that will do margins, right? They'll play in the margins, let's say in the stock market, where you might take a loan from, your bank to put more money into your investment because you believe, bet on black per se, and it's going to be successful. So there is things that you can do to maybe 10x yourself. And then that, as long as you're leveraging the opportunity, today's conversation is not about debt consolidation because, you're just increasing or you're just pushing, kicking the can down the street per se. But this is more about using debt as far as, an expansion of your business and liquidity to some degree, could be forms of lines of credit, credit cards and those types of things, but it is based upon a belief that you have. And that might be, I'm playing a little devil's advocate on the idea of an entrepreneur. You have this spirit. And so most time when you're an entrepreneur, you're positive thinking, right? You believe in what you're doing. You have a faith base amongst yourself that this is going to work. And so when you take that leap of risk and you take that leap of faith, you do have that positivity that it will work out because it's always, to some degree, I'm going to keep going down that path. And so, I would just always, say leveraging out for opportunity is to me good debt.
I got to jump in here. I'm going to be like 𝐂𝐐𝐁𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐏 kind of through the wall in a minute. With all that being said, right, and I'm going to kind of take this back to one of the first episodes me and Dante did, and I'm just going to bring up 3 points and we can kind of incorporate it into the rest of the show. When we did the first show, I brought up the rule of 72. Randall, I'm sure you know what that means. And also, investing really is irrelevant until you make your first $100,000. And the third point I'd like to kind of incorporate, if possible, is using your investments as a line of credit as opposed to liquidation and selling securities. Me and Dante are not financial planners. We like the financial markets. There's certain things we can talk to, certain things we can't. So maybe we can touch into that as we go along today, just kind of as a background. And just to kind of keep it moving on that, I will let you guys get back to it. Like I said, I was just dying to jump in there, especially when Dante brought up leverage.
You like leverage, Vince.
You know that.
Yeah. There's a thin line between patience and progress.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes when I hear the saving of money, right? I mean, the first person I think of is like Dave Ramsey. I just saw one of those skits, or not skits, but I saw one of those clips on Facebook.
Oh, there's skits.
Well, he was on the School of Hard Knocks, right? The guy that's going around asking all the millionaires and billionaires how successful they are. And he said, all this is cash. I paid for all this cash, and I didn't borrow any money. Yeah. And it's almost unfathomable to believe that. It's
Why?
almost.
Why do you think that? Is that another limiting belief?
It might be. It might be.
But he sat there and told us that when the savings and loan crisis happened in the early 80s, and maybe off on my dates a little bit, that he got in trouble. So it wasn't always cash, right? It turned into cash because he leveraged earlier and then turned around and used the financial crisis to come rebuild as to, hey, you're either going to come and take it or I'm going to restructure it.
I think so. I think Dave Ramsey lives his life on the extreme as far as his complete zero use of debt, not even having credit cards. But I do think it is an example that we can kind of draw the life, create the business that we want to at the end of the day, and that we don't have to default into having that regular payment coming up, hitting us upside the head every month. We don't have to have the burden of a mortgage. I think my perspective is a little different because I actually am in different households and I see the burden of debt. I see how that changes the communication with your wife, your kids, even your employees. Like it's more than just a mathematical problem of leverage. When you really talk about people's lives and how you move, even how you do business, nobody talks about, if I'm stressed out about making this sale, how do I appear in the sales room? How do I appear when I'm operating? Like, how do you adjust for that when you think about the usage of debt?
But some of that debt, though, comes into just bad choices, like family choices. Like, hey, we are spending too much and not having a conversation, right? Like, we've had shows before about, what do you do with your mortgage when you're getting divorced? Well, half the reason why you're getting divorced is all about your finances.
And I think so. And we have to always remember, I think Dante brought up a great point. Business owners are overly optimistic, but business owners also are usually not good with money. So what you guys are suggesting is people leverage who are traditionally not good with money to double leverage themselves, which I mathematically, if somebody is not good with money, also leverages themselves with money, I think that's a bad recipe. What I believe we have to get back to is not just sitting, saving. It's actually doing the work of servicing your client base at a scale that you're at today and leveraging up step by step. This is not a passive activity. This is an active activity of delivering value. That is what this exercise is about.
I agree with that. I mean, today's market has made it over the last couple of years that everything's quick and easy. It's not quick and easy, right? We've said this before on the show, and the boss over there said, yeah, you got that 3.5% interest rate because of COVID, but you didn't actually earn it, right? You didn't work for it. It just came to you. And I think the consumer sits there now with, that's the expectation, right? Which is the same thing with debt. I can handle it. It is what it is until something goes wrong and you get in trouble or you gain too much of it. The other thing too is I'm a big advocate of cash on hand, figure things out later, right? And other people say, hey, why rent when you can own? It's a forced savings account. So everyone has their own two ways of how to kind of put that together.
Yeah, and I think you guys know in the mortgage market, so you guys know a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines because they perceive interest rates to be high. Wouldn't they would be wiser for them to be more active, maybe earn more money? Could that be something? Save up more for a down payment. So I really think if we can move past that, I see this scenario, perfect scenario happening, and actually move to being active and working towards what we actually want in society. We don't have to wait for a 3% raise for our boss. We can actually go out and get that versus just sitting back saying circumstances around me will improve. The moment is right now. No, the moment is what you create. And I think that's what I really want to articulate here. Create the life that you want. Don't settle.
Yeah, we stress that on the show that there is no waiting to buy a house. When the time's right, you buy a house, right? Regardless of where that rate is and stuff. I'll let you get into it, Dante. I know I've been kind of talking a bit here.
No, that's great. And I think we're opening up a different conversation from, Vince and you, Randall, that we're talking about how money works and how many people don't know how money works. So that's that double leveraging yourself where you don't know how money works. And now you're going to get yourself more into debt and you're not going to do the things that it takes. When I talk about leveraging opportunities, what am I talking about? Hiring people is an asset, and having good people on staff is important for longevity and for growth. So if you're not using that money to hire a new employee and you're just using it to maybe just pay some bills, that's a bad choice of using money that is going to be borrowed. Money that is borrowed, you have to not only pay that back, but you have to take that $50,000 and make it $100,000. And that $50,000 that you invest into somebody, they may generate $500,000 for you. And so that's always the concept of leveraging opportunities with good debt and knowing what to do with it is important. So I wanted to make that distinction, and I agree that we have to do a better job, and that's why we do this, right? This edutainment that we're here is trying to educate people on the concept of, what is good debt, how to make right decisions, what should you do with money if you're going to borrow it. But I don't want people to be so extreme to not use money when that can help you grow potentially. You just have to be wise. And it took time for me. I thought at once, hey, debt consolidation is great. And then I recognized as I thought about it, I'm like, no, it's not great. I mean, it might be a band-aid for short-term solution, but it's not a long-term answer because you're just paying this money back. And then the interest that you're paying on it, and everyone sees that, right? With TILs, truth in lending disclosures, you take $50,000 out and then you end up paying $75,000 back. That's not a great deal. But if I took the $50,000 and made $150,000, even if I had to pay off the $75,000, that's a great deal. And I would do that all day long. A topic that I took stats. I was ready for you because I know you're a numbers guy. So I was like, I got to be ready. It said the average U.S. small business owner reinvests 20 to 30% of profits annually, but businesses that leverage loans grew revenue 35% faster. And that's based on Harvard Business Review. So it was a concept of using money the right way can accelerate your business growth. But it is using money the right way. And that was kind of the point that I wanted to bring on the show for you. Just, and in my opinion, if we're using it wisely, you can accelerate your growth.
Let me put a caveat to those stats. Stats, you have to be really careful. And I think we all know the term, self-selection bias, meaning that based off the number stats that these businesses grow XYZ, but a lot of things had to happen. One, they had to be in a situation where they could take a loan. We aren't talking about, some of the things that maybe they've done on the personal side as far as loans and debt. So be very careful when we say, well, this business used debt, therefore there is success. Because if you do that, then you also have to show the other end of the coin of what businesses failed when they used debt. We've all been to a shopping plaza that had a delicious restaurant. How could they go out of business? It tastes amazing. They look like the line was out the wall one day and now it's shut down and closed. Nobody talks about that story. We talk about the Apples, we talk about the Googles, the big companies, the things that we idolize, when we really didn't know the true financial circumstance. So be very careful with statistics.
I like that. Yeah.
What would you say a rate of return is? 3 to 1, 4 to 1 in the business sense for like $1 invested or $1 to return, whether marketing, business related expenses, like, hey, if I'm taking that business loan, where should I look at as a structure of it makes sense?
Yeah. So first of all, when we talk about business loans, so I'm not on the extreme. So I do believe in business debt, but I think it has to be smart debt. So let's say I'm already operating business. This goes to Dante points, and I want to scale it to a certain level. I think that could be a wise level of using debt because you already have the business structures in place. All you're doing is slightly turning the knob. I'm not saying you already have debt. I'm saying you're completely zero debt and you're slightly turning the knob, whether you're just buying more on marketing or acquiring another book of business. So things like that make sense. And you have to look at your personal rate of return. Given my business, my revenue, my expenses, this is the rate that I can expect. And you project that minus the interest rate. So I'm not going to put a figure on specifically, you got to make 3 to 1, 2 to 1, because in the real world, anything can happen. So sorry I didn't answer the question, but those are the context.
No. I mean, like I said, I'm always going to throw stuff out there, just kind of like, hey, here's what we're talking about. What's that turnaround? What does it look like? Appreciate the examples.
When we have debt and we're using debt because of 3 kind of components that I'm thinking of. Mm-hmm. My major 3 things that I'm fighting on a regular basis is inflation,
yes,
competition, yes, and timing.
Yes.
Can I be the first one out with this product? My competitor has now launched into the state of Texas. Am I there too? And inflation just erodes. Inflation has averaged 3.4% over the last 50 years, yeah, right? So 3.4% over the last 50 years, meaning idle cash loses value. And so we have to always look to invest and reinvest and make money grow. That's the thing. If you know, and for all the people that have money in their checking and savings account, it's eroding each and every day if you're not applying it to some type of level of a tool that it will grow, whether it's growing a penny, a dollar, you know, $10, whatever the case is. So we have to have these concepts in mind. And that's where I'm like, you know, sometimes good debt is when you can leverage an opportunity. If you see an opportunity in the marketplace, taking some money and betting on yourself, which you've already done as an entrepreneur, might be the step in the right direction. But you are fighting inflation, competition, and timing. You know, those were the three reasons why I kind of, you know, always perceive debt can be good if used correctly.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of those elements I actually do agree with. Just, you know, we're professionals here. We do the calculations. The average person is not doing these calculations. They're not questioning, am I getting 3 to 2% of my money? They're not managing their personal finances with their business finances appropriately. We're asking a lot from the average person. If you are somebody who does this all day, every day, go at it. If you have experience doing it, go at it. But just all I'm doing is throwing up a caution sign. Be cautious when it comes to putting up business debt.
And that's why we brought you on, Randall, because people need to be working with you. Can you give everyone your contact information?
Sure. I think the best way to learn everything I do is my website. It's going to be www.deasilwm.com. So that's deasilwm.com. I'm also on all social media. So just look at my name, Randall Avery, and you should be able to find me. I'm open to a conversation. I offer free consultations. So definitely reach out.
Randall, if you can, I don't do it as a comment. Maybe throw your information in the chat. I don't know if you can on your end. I don't know if you have that access. I know Dante's going to turn around and hit on some house cleaning stuff here in the next couple minutes. And since you like to share numbers, let's make sure you let the audience know how many viewers we got going on right now.
Right now, we have 329 people listening to us right now. We're streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So please give us a like, share with friends and family. We're going to be here for another half an hour. Appreciate everyone listening to us today. Not housekeeping notes just yet, but we're getting closer. I did have a question. I had a couple questions for you, Randall, just because I wanted to get your perspective. You know, obviously, I can be stubborn on my viewpoint, and I want to look at other viewpoints. My first question to you was, and this is a little bit of, I think you started saying this, you know, corporate America lives on leverage. They live on it. They breathe it, you know, each and every day. Why should small businesses, especially small business owners, play it by a different set of rules?
I think when I own a stock of Apple and Apple goes to zero, I am not liable for Apple's debt. When we talk about small businesses, we're usually putting our own credit, our own capital, and also our own, you know, financial situation at risk. So when we talk about small businesses, you have to look at, do I want to put that risk in my business? Which means, do I want to put this risk back in my home? Because like I said, conversations with family members, conversation with employees, conversation with the clients that you serve are just different. So I believe the circumstances are completely different. If you're getting a non-recourse loan, where if you default, then nothing's going to happen to you, God bless you. Go ahead and get that. But for the average small businesses, we usually don't have access to that type of capital.
You know, you worked in corporate finance, I believe, if I remember correctly. Would Apple, Amazon, Tesla, would you tell them to save first?
You know, surprisingly, if I remember this correctly, a lot of those fast growing companies did not use debt. I think Apple held out for a really long time. I think Facebook held out for a really long time. When we talk about these larger companies, a lot of them who didn't need it but decided to go into debt, all it was a little bit of financial engineering as far as buying back stock. So I think we're doing a different type of calculus when we compare a small business owner to a larger major corporation. When I worked in those corporations, I questioned them about their use of debt. And it all boiled down to, if we could just squeeze a little bit more profit out, it's better. And we also have to take into account larger businesses have processes. systems, check and balances, reserves, like the what they have to do to make sure they're being a steward of the capital as the investors is at a whole nother level than what an individual business owner does on a day in and day out basis.
Sure.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that when an individual business owner takes a hit like that, it takes them forever to come back and get back to where it was, right? It's almost catastrophic. Right?
Yeah, and I don't think we ever talk to business owners that fail. I work with a lot of serial business owners, but if you sit down and talk to somebody who leveraged their mortgage, who has to go back and say, hey, I can't get a mortgage for another 2 or 3 years because I declared for foreclosure. Like, nobody is having those conversations with those people. And that's one of the reasons I'm here, is that hopefully I can speak from their perspective. Not that their perspective is right, but it is an angle I want everybody to sit down and map out.
On that topic, I'm in the Chicagoland area. I'm right outside of Chicago, and I'm on just a normal street. Right across the street is the post office, and so we have a candy store to my left, and then to my right, I've seen all these different businesses, small business owners, from an attorney, from a bakery, from a record guy was selling nostalgic records and selling plants, and I've seen real estate company, an accountant, and they've all have left. At the end of the day, maybe the rent was too high, and hopefully candle store company, but I've seen all these companies, small businesses, trying to make it, and they haven't made it, or maybe hopefully they're still in business. I don't know where they are, but it is the reality of being a small business. I mean, everything it's so sensitive. One thing I learned about business is that every business that you go through, we all have all 4 seasons. You have fall, winter, you have spring and summer. So you might have that white hot summer where it seems like, man, you're selling all your widgets right off the table, and then sometimes, man, no one wants to work with you. And it's like, man, what is going on? But when no one wants to work with you, nothing, it just might not be the timing. And timing becomes important, because do you have enough wherewithal to withstand some of those cold months? And that's something that we have to deal with, obviously, with being a small business owner.
Or the capacity to handle the volume when it happens that the timing's right? I mean, in the good moments too, right?
Yeah. All right, it is time for some housekeeping notes. So let's take a pause real fast on housekeeping notes. This episode today is sponsored by Epic Mortgage. Whether you're buying, investing, and refinancing, call Epic today. That's 708-905-5300. That's 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. Let's plan together. Now, if you are looking for the blueprint, a step-by-step playbook on how to turn your mortgage into a wealth-building machine, then you need to buy my book. It's called The Ultimate Mortgage Guide. It's available on Amazon.com. Now, after the show is over, I want you guys to go to our YouTube channel, Epic Spotlight, and I want you to check out the most recent interview. It's with Shawanda Hudson. She's a licensed clinical professional counselor and author of Sipping Your Own Tea. Discover powerful insights on overcoming trauma, breaking mental health stigmas, and the real truth about therapy. Shawanda shares her journey from accounting to mental health advocacy, practical self-care tips, and how to find the right therapist for you. Whether you're struggling, supporting someone, or just curious about mental wellness, this episode is packed with the actionable advice and hope, unlocking, healing, trauma, therapy, and self-care secrets with Shawanda Hudson. So check that episode out when we're done. And then we have some preferred listings. We got some preferred listings. I know I forgot one, but we'll read these. I got 6945 South Dorchester Avenue. It's a condo going for $149. Contact Evelyn Woods, 773-718-9742. I have 548 East 50th Street, Unit 3. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath condo. It's a big condo going for $269.9. Contact Jessica Roberson, 708-518-8120. We have 2030 East 72nd Place, Unit 3D, Chicago, Illinois. It's a 2-bed, 1-bath condo going for $109. Contact Evelyn Woods, 773-718-9742. We have 12673 Simbay Court in Jacksonville, Florida, going for $374,990. It's a 4-bed, 3-bath, new construction. Contact Charday Nix 904-520-8041. We also have 12707 Simbay Court, Jacksonville, Florida. It's going for $378,990. It's a 4-bed, 3-bath. Contact Charday Nix 904-520-8041. And we have 16029 Circle Drive, Markham, Illinois. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath, going for $109,900. Great for an investment property. Contact Keith Terry 773-655-1360. And we have 412 North Ridgeland Avenue, Elmhurst, Illinois. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath, going for $410,000. Contact Laretha Lowry 708-670-8165. And we just got one more this morning. I did not put it on, so give me 1 second here. And we have 13827 South Windworth in Riverdale, Illinois. Contact Amico Pope, and that's Amico is 312-600-7673. All those properties are available on my website, DanteRoyster.com. So you can go to DanteRoyster.com and check those out. And hopefully, if you need to get pre-approved, we know the listing agent. We can help you and make your life a lot easier. All right, we got some questions in Q&A, so I appreciate everyone. If you have more questions, by all means, make sure you just go right there and put it in the comments, and we'll get to you. All right, we have Bob, really loving this topic. What inspired today's discussion? Thanks, Bob, for listening. Randall, what really struck you today?
It was actually a client meeting that I had, and I was trying to really unload some of this information. And what it really needed to be is, like we're having today, a 30-minute discussion talking about pros and cons, not necessarily right and wrong, but just have a true deep dive. And it wasn't the space at the time, my client. And I think we had a discussion about debt. You had mentioned Dave Ramsey, and you, of course, your area in doing mortgage financing. So I thought this is the perfect conversation for today, and hopefully it can add value to people in general.
No, that's awesome. Really appreciate you doing it. It really got me going. Like, is it good debt? Is it not good debt? Made me think. Real Estate with Kate. Randall and Dante are dropping some serious gems here. Thanks, Kate. Thanks for listening. I think you're a first-time listener, or at least a first-time commenter. So really appreciate you listening today. Thanks so much. All right, we have Michael. Do you think mindset plays a bigger role than math in taking on debt? What do you think, Randall?
Does mindset play a bigger role than math in taking on debt? That's a tough one, because I do think mindset's important. You do have to believe. Because of my background, so I'm a certified financial planner, CFA. I do believe you have to do the math. And I think business owner always need to take back. If you're stepping into the world where you are leveraging, where you are, putting yourself up there and out there, really putting yourself out there, you have to sit down and do the math. What I see a lot is a lot of people put their head in the sand when it comes to the math. They say, oh, I can make the payment. But as we mentioned earlier, like, are you getting that ROI? Are you getting that turn on your money? I think if you are going to go into the world of getting finances, you have to sit down to the math or pay somebody to do it for you. Either way.
I agree. I think 100% the math is the first thing. Hey, if I'm going to take $50,000, what am I going to do with it? You know what I mean? And how much am I have to pay per month? Some of these crazy companies out there are charging weekly denominations. You can't do the weekly stuff, but you got to do the monthly. If you're going to take on debt, you got to do a monthly situation. Gives you more time to actually be able to pay it. But you have to be thinking, what can I do with this money? And how am I going to, 10x it, potentially? How can I make 50,000 into 500,000? What is this going to do for me? So I think the math has to speak first, and then the mindset is already there because you're an entrepreneur. So you already have the mindset of, I'm going to make it happen. But now you have to do the numbers to make sure that it actually does happen.
I gotta spin that a little bit, guys. I agree with you. The math's important, but the problem is for the risk taker, the entrepreneur, it's the push of the belief in yourself sometimes can put you in trouble. So at a certain point in time, you have to look at it. The mindset as just harder than the math, right? From the standpoint, Is it just, I want to do this, or is it, can I do it, and do I have the means to do it?
I love the idea of board of directors. I kind of heard that over the years that you should, and I do it. I do it with you even. I think it's so important to have a board of directors around you that have different ideologies, different beliefs, and listen to them give you their opinion on things. At the end of the day, you're going to make up your own mind. You're going to do what you're going to do, but it's good to hear. I want to hear what Vince has to say. I want to hear if Randall thinks it's a great idea. I want to hear what my wife thinks. Even though you may know the answer, you just need to hear it. I was doing some marketing videos, and they're done, and we had a situation where I saw them, and I was like, I don't like them. It just didn't hit, but I wanted to hear from other people. And I was like, so I went to my mom, I went to another person out in California, like, hey, I want you to look at this and tell me what you think. And they concurred. And it was like, okay, trash, because it's just, if it's not going to do what I needed to do, then you got to move on.
For our audience, me and Dante used to sometimes spend a Saturday morning at about an hour doing this, not online. So
yes. Now we're doing it and where everyone can hear us. Crazy. All right. Everything Jacksonville, Florida. Thanks for hosting such a valuable conversation. So insightful. Appreciate you listening. Thank you very much. We are obviously doing business in Jacksonville. We got some new construction down there that we're working with, Charday Nix on. I have some clients in the Jacksonville area, so appreciate you listening. And we're definitely looking for more topics. So if you have any other ideas or suggestions, make sure you pass it to us. And also, too, if you give us a like, and share this with others, and subscribe to the channel, because we're going to have more just like this.
And you're always welcome on the show to be a guest to the audience.
Yes.
No one's taken us up on that yet.
Yeah, they're scared. Citrus Hills, great topic. How do you measure when debt becomes leverage? You want to answer that, Randall?
Yeah, so
it's paid off. No, I'm just jumping in. When it's paid off.
So leverage is, I think they're interchangeable. But let's go to the deeper conversation. The concept is, when am I leaning into something so to get the higher return? That's when people think leverage. So whenever you take on, so I think it's the intention behind the debt. So if I take out debt, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm leveraging anything. But if I'm taking out debt to do a larger marketing campaign, to purchase a client list or coverage, that's when you're kind of leveraging your situation. So I really think it's the intention behind the debt determines whether that debt is being leveraged or it's just debt that you decided to take out.
I think that's good. We'll mic drop on that one. All right. So glad I tuned in. This is pure value. Appreciate that. Hopefully, yeah. I mean, obviously, let's talk just real briefly, Randall. What do you hope that a business owner listening to this today is going to gain from this?
The number one thing is, you do not need to have a pool of cash. You don't need to take out a massive loan to go out and do what you want to do into this world. Think about starting small where you're at. People say, well, I'm a chef and I don't have a large kitchen. Well, can I rent a kitchen? Can I rent a space? Can I rent some different things? They say, well, I want to do a landscaping business. I don't have this big tractor thing. Well, can I rent a push lawnmower for a day? Think about how you can take it on a small level, service the people that you want to service, and slowly leverage up. You will appreciate the information that you gain, the knowledge about your customer and how to service them better. So do not take this as an approach to be passive and sit back and say, I want you to be active and actually doing what you want to do. Because a lot of times financing and debt allows us to want to kind of sit back and just pay for things that we actually should be doing. So we have the actual capital, the intellectual capital, to run our business better.
I want it to be known that 43% of small business owners use personal savings to fund their businesses, and 34% use personal credit cards. And that's the part that is wrong. That's the part that is bad. Now, from a credit perspective, obviously we'll talk mortgages real quick on this. From a mortgage perspective, your personal credit is what we pull the scores on. If you can maintain all debt into the business name, we don't see that. And then therefore you can actually have higher credit scores, gives you more liquidity base and more opportunities if you keep your personal credit clean. So the beauty of being an entrepreneur, the beauty of having your own business is that you can, create, opportunities and leverage opportunities from your business, as well as have, start having a business credit, history on yourself that allows you to get credit cards, lines of credit, business loans in your business, which does not show up on your credit report. And that's really huge to maintain good, high credit scores. So when I read those stats to you, I got that from the Journal Record. I understand to start a business, 100% it's personal savings. It's things that you have to take money out to start a business. We wouldn't be here today. Epic Mortgage wouldn't be open today if I didn't have equity in my house. So I understand about personal debt, but as quickly as you can, you got to take care of that personal debt and shift that bad boy over to the business side of things, where you can, improve your credit scores and have higher credit scores for anything that potentially may happen. So you really have to allow the business to be able to stand on its own 2 feet. It becomes its own person. It's its own entity. And that's very important that I wanted to share with that. And I hope people are wise when they get off the show. I hope they are aware of the 3%, 3.4% inflation. No money that you have should be making less than 3.4%. That over the last 50 years, that's where inflation is. Anything less than that, it's erosion. It is erosion to your dollars, to your cents, to your pennies, and everything. So we should always be looking to increase in where can I get a rate of return. And so if you take on debt, how can I make this a rate of return for myself? All right, we got Brandon Turner, powerful insights. Any tips for first-time founders facing this decision? What do you think, Randall?
First-time founders. I tell all my clients who want to be business owners, I do something called 100 cups of coffee. And that is, find somebody who does what you do in the way that you want to do it, or something similar, maybe even some vendors, and sit down and have a cup of coffee with them and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Initially, I sell this to folks. They're like, oh, man, they're going to steal my business plan. Trust me. There's very few people actually going to do the work to start a business. So I wouldn't even worry about that. Or somebody who's going to dip out their lane to go into your lane. So sit down, talk to people, and really say, this is what I'm thinking about financing. Would you have done it? Does this make sense? And sit back, be quiet, and take in. Don't try to rebuttal everything. Well, what about this? What about this? Take that in. If you talk to enough people, you'll kind of get an idea of what's smart to finance, what's not smart to finance. But dig a little deeper and say, hey, man, I know you said finances, but what is the headache that you're dealing with financially, as far as your books, about all those different things about life? So that's what I would recommend. Talk to people who are doing what you're doing, and definitely that. You also get a financial planner who specializes in business owner, but that's kind of a self-plug.
Love it. Well, why don't you talk about your book?
Self-plug, now a book.
Oh,
yeah, my book, Hacking the System by Creating Your Own System. If you're on the point where you're feeling uncomfortable in kind of corporate life and thinking about what can I do to actually change the system that I am, I definitely recommend my book, Hacking the System by Creating Your Own System. And it's on Amazon right now for purchase.
That's awesome. All right. How do you manage the emotional side of taking business debt?
I'll take on that. So when you take on debt, and that goes back to, I think the question was, which one's more important, mindset or the math? I think the math allows you to be at peace with the debt in your decision that you make. It also tells you, and it's not just the simple math, but it's also, they call it a sensitivity analysis, meaning if XYZ happens and there's a downturn in my business, how long until I'm really in trouble? Or if this goes up, how soon can I pay it off? So it really begins with looking at the numbers and say, this is what happened and this is what could happen. And I think if you do the sensitivity analysis, when stuff happens, because stuff does happen in business, there's no way around that. You know what your options are. So take time, do the sensitivity analysis, and talk to people, talk to other business owners if they believe in taking on debt. This business thing should not be done alone. We should, as these gentlemen have talked to, they talk about business all the time because business can be lonely and tough. have a conversation with folks, really open up about what you're doing. And I think that will help on the emotional side, because going home and talking to your spouse or somebody who's not in business, that usually does not cut the mustard.
That makes me laugh.
No. Sorry, we're not taking the trip this year, honey. What do you mean?
Man, just having those conversations with my wife, even like, what are you doing? This looks like a waste of time. But no. But it is good banter, though. It is good banter, and it's always I don't know. This is a tough question. I'm glad you answered that one, because emotions are, it's kind of internal. It's who you are as a person. I mean, you have to have a level of thick skin. You have to have a level of, some type of, I mean, some volatility is good, but it has to be, restrained at times. So, but I think it's just important. You got to know what debt you're taking on and what's the game plan to really pay it off and make money off of it. I think that's so important.
Don't let your pride get in the way if something goes wrong, though.
True. Yeah. Be able to say it wasn't a good idea. Wave that
right,
white flag.
Ain't nothing wrong with waving the flag before, right? The easy flag first before you get, into the penalty box, right? Like, hey, it is what it is, right? We'll use soccer, right? You get a yellow card before the red card, right? I mean, you got a yellow, right? Stop. Reassess what's going on.
How hard is it to pivot when you took out $50,000 to $150,000 of debt? People don't talk about that element.
No, right? I mean, it kind of goes back to what we said earlier, right? When something goes wrong, it takes that much longer to get out of it. But then again, it goes back to the plan, right? Dante talks about this too, right? It's your different buckets of how you plan your life and assets. It's the same thing with your business, right? Your business plan is how you're going to make it grow. Somewhere along the line, you started in someone else's business to learn the business, right? So it's the steps of the path along the way.
Yes, spot on.
You have brought up 𝐂𝐐𝐒𝐑𝐈𝐏𝐓.
Well, 𝐂𝐐𝐒𝐑𝐈𝐏𝐓, that's right. That goes back to my ASU days, so it's okay.
Oh, that's true. Okay. And then you brought up penalty box hockey. And then you brought soccer goalie. So I'm like, man, you're starting to get all the sports.
Hopefully the Bears score some touchdowns today, and there are no more Hail Marys in Washington.
Yes, this is true. Now football as well. Yes. Okay. Good stuff. And then let's see. We have another one here. Thanks for making financial strategy feel accessible and real. No, once again, thanks for everyone listening today. We thought this was a great topic. When Randall, emailed me, I was like, man, this is a no-brainer to have this conversation, because there are two sides of the fence. And there's no right or wrong, and I think that's the key. There's no right or wrong here. We're just talking, and we're just trying to figure out, what's the best. I think it's important, can you afford for your dream to take a steady, kind of slower approach, or are you trying to accelerate the dream? And one thing we didn't talk about today, which, is something to consider, it's how old are you? Sure. How old age plays a major role. If I'm 20 years old, yeah, maybe I don't need all these things. I can systematically in time get there. But if I'm 50, 55 years old and I have this yearning desire to start something, and I need to see the pop quicker than if I'm living in my mom's basement, so age may play a factor into that thought process of being a business owner. Do I need to take on this debt, or can I slowly, methodically get there in time? So that is something also to consider too, wouldn't you say?
I think that has a factor. But I think we as a society are falling in love with outcomes. And we really should be falling in love with the process. We all want to say, okay, well, I want to be XYZ at so many years. Like, yeah, nobody determines that. Man plans his path, but God has another decision. We really need to understand that. Just fall in love with the process. If you aspire to do XYZ, do XYZ to your best extent at that moment, given your situations, and hopefully blessings will come. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But you got the opportunity to play the game. Why is that not enough? Why is not the opportunity to play the game? Because I work with a lot of people who are retired, and they can have a pile of money but can't do anything with it. And they never got to play the game. let's have fun. Let's play this game. Let's service the people we want to service and just knock it out the park. That's all I request.
Yeah.
It's the microwave society that we live in, right? It's the no one wants deferred gratification. Delayed gratification is another way of saying it, but it's hard. Everyone wants instant gratification, and it seems the younger you are, my kids, right? I have a 9-year-old and 11-year-old. They grew up on YouTube. Well, they're not used to commercials. So the whole concept of having to wait these 2, 3, 4-minute segments for your show to come back on is ridiculous. Like, why am I waiting here? We can go on to Netflix, we can go on to YouTube, we can go on to Disney, and I have no commercials. So why am I waiting on commercials? So they're impatient, and the thought of and to your point, investing takes time. Whether you're investing in a business, investing in stocks, investing in real estate, the true growth and wealth that we see is probably 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Yes. But that's a daunting task to ask someone on day one. And so, especially for the younger generation, some of the things that we're saying today is like, whoo, you want me to wait? I need all the likes. I want the 1 million subscribers. I mean, and also too, one of the things is in the visual world that we're in now, the internet has now put us closer together. I see more success. Yeah. I don't see anyone's failures because no one's posting that. Hey, watch me trip over my foot. Hey, watch me slam my hand in the door. No one sees that. But you see all my wins. You see all my trophies. You see all my success. You see my book. You see this. You see that. So it is harder if you're in that echo chamber. It is hard to stay patient because you want your piece of the pie, sooner than later. And that's a struggle that we're going to have to figure out, because the reality is it does take time in anything that we do.
Yeah, it takes time. And I think it takes time to learn how to do something well. Dante, when you first was a mortgage or underwriter, like there were some ways you had to learn how to talk to customers. There had to be a way that you find different folks to do. Like, it takes time to build competency. And I think you're spot on. Like, you have to put in the work. It is going to take time. But don't mess up with $100,000 of debt over your head. That's all I'm saying.
Way to finish it up like that.
Eventually, someday your kids are going to come back to this YouTube show and going to say, Dad, you
did
what?
Agree to disagree. Rented at interest. There's your math equation right there. It's just time rented at interest. Yeah. Debt is not the villain.
We're breaking up, buddy.
Yeah, you went in and out on my end. Do you mind repeating yourself, please? Still a little bit slow.
Yeah. Well, Randall, I could still hear you. I'm sure you can still hear me. If you want, give your contact information one more time, and hopefully Dante will come back in here.
Okay. So like I said, my name again is Randall Avery, certified financial planner, chartered financial analyst. I own 𝐒𝐶 Wealth Management, a wealth management firm.
Go ahead, Randall.
Contact me. My email address is going to be ravery@deasilwm.com. That's ravery@deasilwm.com. Check me out on my website at deasilwm.com as well. So please reach out to me. I'm open and personable, and I hope this added value to your audience.
Dante, if you can hear us, close out the show. Otherwise, you're going to make me do it, and that's probably not a good idea. Yep, it's my turn. All right, everyone, thanks for listening. Yeah, Randall, thanks for you on the show.
Here, we had a great segment. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
For listening.
Everyone, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll be back. Take care. Thanks, Randall. Have a good afternoon. Thanks, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties there.
Great conversation. Take care. It happens. Take care.